Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Tigers Baseball Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Schulte, and I am doing well here on this Monday, July 4th, 2022. At the time of this recording, the Tigers are just fresh off a sweep of a doubleheader of the Cleveland Guardians. Included in that was the first career start and first major league win for first career start and first major league win for Garrett Hill, who was drafted in the 26th round by the Tigers a few years back and pitched in the Arizona Fall League. You'll remember, if you followed things last year, that Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson were the big deal in the Arizona Fall League as far as the Tigers were concerned, and Garrett Hill was just kind of, oh yeah, he's in the Fall League. Well, not anymore. Garrett Hill is a rising piece for the Detroit Tigers. He's a rising prospect, the former 26th rounder, and pitched really well today. 1 run on 2 hits, 1 walk, and 3 strikeouts over 6 innings. And the Tigers needed it because it was a split doubleheader, and Alex Faedo didn't even get out of the 4th. To his credit, he was pitching okay. He'd given up 3 runs, but he hurt his hip. He has hip soreness, right hip soreness, and that's why he left the game. Tyler Alexander came in and pitched a couple of good innings, and then the Tigers pieced it together from there. First and second games of a 4-game series that will end on Wednesday and see the Tigers go on the road for 4 in Chicago. Then they've got 4 in Kansas City, and I believe 4 in Minnesota after that. They're playing 19 games in 17 days, and that stretch started on Friday with games against the Royals, a series against the Royals that the Tigers lost 2-1, but in that series, Riley Green hit his first ever Major League home run, and it was a walk-off in the bottom of the 9th in Saturday's 4-3 win over the Royals, a game that saw the Tigers come back from a 3-2 deficit in the bottom of the 9th with back-to-back home runs off the bats of Victor Reyes and the aforementioned Riley Green. So, a stretch of games like that can galvanize a team in ways, and we can hope that works out for the Tigers that way. So, a quick injury update. Jose Cisnero has started his rehab assignment. He pitched an inning yesterday and threw pretty well. So, my guess is they're going to get him a couple more innings or a couple more rehab outings, maybe one tomorrow and probably one on Thursday or something like that, and then he'll probably join the team either in Chicago or Kansas City, which will prompt a move because the limit is 13 pitchers, and the Tigers do now need 5 starters for the next few days because of the basically the 3 double headers, because I think they've got a doubleheader against Minnesota. No, they don't. They had one against Minnesota, but Minnesota decided to change that. But in all honesty, it's 3 doubleheaders in the next 3 weeks because the All-Star game is on the 19th, but the Tigers fly out to Oakland on the 20th, play a doubleheader in Oakland on the 21st, come back to Detroit, have, I believe, that following Friday off, the 23rd, and then, or the 22nd, and then have games on the 23rd and 24th. It's messed up the way that they did this, and they did it because of the schedule and games that would have been lost to the lockout if they hadn't decided to try to play a full 162 games. And so what you're seeing is a lot of doubleheaders for all the teams Cleveland has played 3 doubleheaders in the last 5 days, I think it is, or 2 doubleheaders in the last 4 days, something like that. It's been brutal for these teams, and we do have a doubleheader in Kansas City on Monday of next week because of a rainout, and this doubleheader today was a makeup for a game that was rained out in May. Yeah, the end of May, just before the Tigers played Minnesota. So they had that really funky stretch where they played Cleveland. They went to Minnesota for 3, went to Cleveland for 3, then had Minnesota for 5, and had another 4-game series against Cleveland. And that one of those games was rained out. One of those home games was rained out, and it turned into a 3-game series. And so the Tigers now, we can officially say that's a series that they took 2-1 back in the middle to the end of May, and now we can officially say they've taken that series 3-1. They're up 1-0 in this series. The originally scheduled series that started today. So they can take the series tomorrow. If they can win tomorrow, they're in a good position to take that series as it is because they've gotten 2 wins and it's a 4-game set. So they can either win tomorrow or win on Wednesday. I'd prefer to see them win on tomorrow and on Wednesday, but that's just me. They are now 7-2 against Cleveland in the year. They came in 5-2. They're 7-2 against Cleveland this year. They were 3-2 against Cleveland. They're now 5-2 against Cleveland. So it's a big deal. It's really a big deal. When you look at the way that Cleveland handled Detroit over the last few years, to be in a situation where you're through 7 games, you're above 500 against a team, that's huge. That's a big deal. When you consider that Cleveland had beaten the Tigers 20 games in a row back in up till middle of 2020, and then Detroit went ahead and took the opening series against Cleveland last year at Comerica Park and played a little bit better against them, but this is a stepping stone. This is a building block. A lot of people sit there and think that this is a lost season for Detroit, and in a way it is, because of injuries and things like that. And if you look at the numbers, they're on pace to win 62 games and lose 100, and it would be a step backward from that standpoint. But if you look at it from the standpoint of, if you look at it from the standpoint of little things, they're playing better against Cleveland. They're playing a little bit better against Minnesota. They're playing a little bit better against Kansas City. They still haven't figured out Chicago yet. But, if they play better in the division, you can take that as a building point into next year. When you consider the fact that Casey Mize isn't coming back until probably early 2024. Matt Manning is just now throwing off of a mound. Michael Pineda just pitched his first game on Saturday after a broken finger, his first game in over a month. Tarik Skubal has all of a sudden decided to fall apart. And Eduardo Rodriguez isn't even with the team. You look at the original starting rotation of this team, and they're piecing it together with Alex Faedo and Bo Brisky and Garrett Hill, and Tarik Skubal is still there, and now Michael Pineda is there. But three of your five starting rotation, the three of the original five starting rotation are out. One of them isn't coming back until next year at the earliest. One of them, we don't even know if he's going to come back. Because let's not forget, Eduardo Rodriguez is on the restricted list, which means he's taking personal time. He's dealing with what, by all intents and purposes, from everything that I've heard, is an impending divorce. His wife left him. AJ Hinch said a few weeks ago on SiriusXM Channel 89 that he was in Florida with his kids. He didn't say his wife and kids. He said with his kids. Now, maybe that was a slip by AJ. Maybe his wife was there. I don't know. But you're looking at a situation where Eduardo Rodriguez might not recover from this at all this year. It's the beginning of July. Baseball season ends in early October. If he decided to come back tomorrow, he would need to ramp back up again. He'd need to start a throwing program, and then he'd need to go back and do at least 2 or 3 rehab starts. If he decided tomorrow, I'm going to rejoin the team, we don't see him until the beginning of August. It gets much longer in this situation. This is a lost year for him, and it's a lost year for the Tigers. Now, the Tigers don't have to pay his salary for this year, but it's still a lost year for both sides. So we may not see Eduardo Rodriguez in a Tigers uniform again this year. And then, of course, he can opt out after next year. So we may only get 1 year of Eduardo Rodriguez, which at that point, you're betting on yourself. If he opts out after next year, if he comes back next year and he knows after next year he's opting out, he's betting on himself. And he better have a darn good year, because if he doesn't, he's going to look awful silly. But I think his head's not even in that place right now. I think right now he's thinking, how do I resolve this marital issue? What do I got to do to get my life back in order? And you know what? I don't blame him. This is a game played by little boys. I'm sorry, but if I had a choice to step away from baseball to save my marriage or continue with baseball and lose my wife, I'm stepping away. Sorry, boys. I'm done. The lady doesn't want me to play anymore. But that's neither here nor there. I want to talk a little bit about the trade deadline, which is coming up in 28 days. August 2nd is the trade deadline this year. And I'm seeing reports of oh, well, the Tigers are going to trade Michael Fulmer, and the Tigers are going to trade, Michael Pineda, and the Tigers are going to trade Robbie Grossman, and the Tigers are going to do this, and the Tigers are going to do that. Al Avila does not play by the rules. And this is part of the problem that I have with Al Avila, because if he didn't play by the rules and he made really smart decisions, that wouldn't be a problem. But Al Avila doesn't play by the rules, and he doesn't make brilliant decisions. He doesn't make good moves. So would they trade Robbie Grossman? I would imagine they do. They're not going to get much for him because he's hitting, I think he's hitting 195 or something like that right now. But his OPS is coming up. He had a decent day today, drew a couple of walks, but he also took a couple of called third strikes. He's hit a couple home runs and whatnot. He's been hurt. But they don't have him. He's signed till the end of this year, and then he's a free agent. And there's a part of me that wants to see Al Avila trade him because it makes some room in that outfield. Because let's not forget, Austin Meadows is still rehabbing from. Well, he was on the COVID list, and then he hurt his Achilles starting his rehab program after being on the COVID list. So he's still in play, and they've still got control over him for, I want to say, 3 more years, 2 or 3, something like that. There's still this guy in AAA in Toledo by the name of Akil Baddoo. You've got Victor Reyes, you've got Riley Green. So, and you've got Daz Cameron and Derek Hill, both with major league experience now. Not much, but some. And Willie Castro is playing a decent outfield. So you've got a logjam in the outfield. You really need to move this guy because you're not going to get anything for him at the end of the year. Now, could he possibly re-sign with the Tigers? Maybe. But do you want to do that considering what you've got waiting in the wings? I don't know. What do you do with Michael Fulmer? Do you trade him and get some prospects? Jonathan Scope has an option year next year. Now, he's not hitting well, but his defense is amazing. Tucker Barnhart is at the end of is in the last year of his deal. It was an option year that the Tigers picked up when they traded for him. Now, he likes being here, but it is the last year of his contract. And he's a switch-hitting catcher. Jeimer Candelario couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat in the middle of the ocean. So do you trade him and make room for somebody like, I don't know, Ryan Kreidler? I don't see that happening only because of the fact that there's really nobody that's waiting in the wings. Cody Clemens, I suppose, but I don't know that that's a deal that Al Avila makes. I just worry that the guys that they're talking about trading, the names you've heard and seen in articles, are names of players who aren't doing well, and we're not going to get very good return for them. So I'm kind of concerned with what Al Avila is going to do at the trade deadline because Al Avila doesn't do very well when it comes to making trades. He doesn't do very well when it comes to signing free agents either, as evidenced by the performance of Robbie Grossman and the fact that Eduardo Rodriguez is having the issues that he's having personally, and the fact that Javi Baez is just now hitting above 200. So I'm a little concerned. They're also talking about the possibility of them trading Andrew Chafin because Chafin has an option for next year. But the question then becomes, what do you get for these guys? So this is the problem that Al Avila faces at the trade deadline this year. And that is, what do you get for what you have? And who do you trade? Because this club is not necessarily badly positioned as far as pitching. Sure, it needs hitters, but it's always, everybody needs offense. Even the Yankees could use extra offense, even though their lineup is the number one offense in the league. You can never have too much offense. But nobody's going to give you a prime bat or a prime prospect for Michael Fulmer. Why? Because he's just coming off of Tommy John surgery. His first full season off of that was last year. He was so-so at the beginning of the year. He's just now starting to heat up a little bit. But he's a free agent. So why waste a prospect when you can sign him later? Why waste a prospect on Andrew Chafin, who is pitching really well as of late, when he's got an option year for next year? So you might get 2 years, well, a year and a half. You might not. Why waste a prospect on Gregory Soto, who is, for his career, has been up and down, isn't that consistent? Why waste a prospect for... Now, granted, you've got some control over Soto for the next few years. But really, the guys that the Tigers have aren't good enough to get big-name prospects. They're just not. So, Al Avila has to get something, but he has to get a hidden gem. He has to get somebody like an Alex Lang. He can't get Travis Demeritte. Who, by the way, I was talking about this last year. Detroit got him from Atlanta for Shane Green. DFA'd him in 2020. Sorry, in 2021. Atlanta picked him back up, sent him to the minors, and we ain't heard nothing from him since. He's still languishing in the minors. He's not good enough to crack the Atlanta roster. Now, Shane Green has since moved on to other things, but this is just what I'm saying and what I've been saying about what Al Avila does and is as a general manager. He's just not that good. He's just not that good. He's not capable. He doesn't have whatever it is that smart general managers have to be able to see the mid-level prospect for what they really are. Because let's face it, if they trade any of these guys, especially based on performance this year, if they trade any of these guys that you've heard being talked about in articles in The Athletic and on MLB.com and things like that, the return for them isn't going to be a Joe Adell. It isn't going to be, one of these high-end prospects that nobody's given up Bobby Witt Jr. for Michael Fulmer. Boston isn't giving up Marcelo Mayer for Gregory Soto. New York's not sending I can't think of the guy's first name. Volpe is his last name, though. To Detroit for Jamer Candelario. It's just not going to happen. Sorry, boys, but it's not. So, I'm a little concerned with what's going to happen with the Tigers at the deadline. And I'm a little concerned with what this means for them in the offseason. And as much as look, Al Avila has a family to feed. I get that. But he doesn't need to be doing it out of Chris Ilitch's wallet. I'm sorry, but he doesn't. He needs to go. And Chris Ilitch needs to find somebody who's... Look, if you can get somebody out of LA, out of the Dodgers front office, or out of the Houston front office, or out of the Oakland front office, or out of the Tampa front office, by all means, do it. Because those are the four teams: the LA Dodgers, the Houston Astros, the Oakland Athletics, and the Tampa Bay Rays, who to me have the best front offices in Major League Baseball right now. Because their front office people can identify talent where most everybody else just doesn't have a clue. If I'm Chris Ilitch, you brought AJ Hinch in after a 1-year suspension and in the sign stealing scandal. Jeff Lunau has been out of baseball now for 3 years. Al Avila's contract is up at the end of this year. I'm making 2 phone calls the day after the regular season is over. One to Al Avila: sorry, Al, we're not extending you. Clean out your office. The next one to Jeff Lunau: hey, I know you've been out of baseball for a few years. I know that there's been, a suspension involved. I know that there was the sign stealing scandal and all of this. But you and AJ worked really well together in Houston. I want you to come here and help AJ turn this team around and build us a winner. And not just a winner that's going to win for 5 or 6 years. I'm talking about a winner that's going to be there for the long term. A winner that's going to be there like the Yankees, like the Red Sox, like the Dodgers, a perennial powerhouse. Because I think part of the problem that AJ Hinch is having is the fact that Al Avila is not giving him what he needs as far as the players that he needs to be able to implement the plans that he has for this team. There's also a rumor going around that AJ Hinch has an opt-out after this year. Well, you know what? If he does and he chooses to take it and go somewhere else, good on him. I'm sorry, but good on him. If things aren't going well, yeah, I go ahead and take off. Especially if they stick with the people up in the front office who are the ones that are hindering what I want to do. And I'm not saying that AJ Hinch is power hungry. I don't think he is. But I think he has a desire and a plan, and he knows the guy knows how to win. And for too long, we've had to deal with managers and general managers and front office staffs who don't know how to win, whose idea of winning is let's throw more money at the problem. Now, that worked with Mike Ilitch because Mike Ilitch didn't care. But Chris Ilitch does. Chris Ilitch wants to win on a budget. And if you want to do that, AJ Hinch is your guy to manage this team, to lead this team on the field. But to lead the team in the front office, get me somebody from Tampa, Houston, Oakland, or LA. For that matter, get a hold of Jeff Lunau and say, hey, we want you in Detroit. You don't do that, you're not serious. As I said earlier, the Tigers have 2 games left with Cleveland. Then they got 4 in Chicago at that dumpster fire that's known as Guaranteed Rate Field. And yes, White Sox fans, I called your baseball park a dumpster fire. It's a dumpster fire in the middle of a dumpster, and the neighborhood that it's built in is a dumpster. And Chicago White Sox fans are just a bunch of dumpster rats. So there you go. 4 in Chicago, 4 in Kansas City, and I believe they've got 4 more in either Cleveland or Minnesota, their divisional games all the way through to the All-Star break. So we'll see where things go later on this week. I will be back on Sunday with another episode of the pod. If you want to get in touch with the show, you can. Podcast Tigers on Twitter. So it's at Podcast Tigers on Twitter. Or Tigers Baseball Podcast at gmail.com. It's the world's longest email address, and I'm proud of that. Thanks to Anchor for distributing the podcast on Spotify, Stitcher, and other podcast platforms. And if you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much for subscribing and do me a favor and like the channel. Talk to as many people about it as you can. Get more people to subscribe so that we can actually get over 100 subscribers and get a custom URL. And we will talk to you next week. Until then, I'm Chris Schulte. Go Tigers!